Hello, hello, hello.
Okay, maybe now.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Okay. We're working. Sorry, everyone. We had technical difficulties on our end, so we had to restart everything.
Okay, we're here.
Hello.
And we're rolling.
Okay,
5, 4, 3.
Energy. G'day, friends! Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday, or happy Sunday, wherever you're at.
Or Sunday. I'm not going to discriminate. You have your weekend the way you would like it.
Two Saturdays or 2 Sundays? Or
So, I've got a bunch of these pre-stamped out images here, and as you can see, they're all on different pieces of paper. Now, let's just see if we can't fit all of these pieces of paper in. We have a bit of a control here. I want to discuss thoughts about different types of paper because I was going through Instagram today and I saw Victory Nichols had done the same girl on 2 different pieces of paper, and the results are different, and so I think this is really important. I know I've discussed it before in the past, but it's always fun to look at how different things can be. So we've got our control done on the Fabriano Student hot press watercolor paper. It's quite thin. The hot press I've always felt like dulled down my colors a little bit, and I've got a bunch of different ones here too. I've got a manila tag, I've got the B paper, 100% cotton watercolor paper, cold press, so it's lots of texture. This is also cold press paper, but it's the back side of a Canson watercolor paper. This is a composition notebook page. We've got a regular copy paper, but we've also got a premium copy paper because I'm actually curious to see if there's a difference. This is a lot more smooth and slick than this one is, so I imagine watercolor will hold up better on this. And then notebook sketch paper, something just like regular from a sketchbook. So I want to go through doing exactly the same colors, exactly the same watercolors. They're Daniel Smith watercolors, so you know they're great quality. Well, I think this is Winsor & Newton. This might be a mix of Winsor & Newton, Daniel Smith, but they're really, really great quality. I'm going to use a great quality paintbrush just to show you that paper is super important to think about when you're creating your art, doing your journals. It's not the end of the world though. I'm actually going to try and do a really good job on each of these because I don't want you to think that I have some weird preference. I'm not getting paid by any of these companies to discuss it, so I just want to go through it and show you the differences and why I think some things, you could still make work, but they're just a little bit more irritating to figure out. So let's start with something like that would be a complete contrast. I think we start with a notebook paper versus the B paper. Now this is 100% cotton watercolor paper. And the things that I love about watercolor paper is that, I'll have to start with this, I think it's like a raw sienna skin tone. The thing that I love about the watercolor paper, the cold press, I love the texture. This B paper's got a lot of texture, but it holds up to a lot of the wet media.
It like holds on to the wet.
Yeah, so you've got, it'll sink in, it'll give you nice blends, it won't warp like crazy, but then sometimes I have really enjoyed the warping, like in my Tomoe River paper journal. I really, really loved that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Steve's just like, wow, I did
started
not sign on for this
I
today.
just started painting 2 days ago.
And there's not all watercolor papers are made equal as well. So just because they are sturdy and thick and they've got a bit of texture on them doesn't mean they're going to work well for all your watercolors. Depending on the different sizing and the chemistry of that watercolor paper, like a lot of chemicals go into the process of making not just the paints, but the paper itself. Depending on that sizing, it could even turn your colors a different color. And I think you'll see the difference between the 2 cold press watercolor papers. I typically notice that the B paper is a little bit more vibrant.
Is this the same color that is?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. This is going to dry down.
You didn't use the bone color?
Mm-mm. I put it in this tin and just watered it down.
Oh, I don't know what colors you got going on in that tin. That's my mess.
We'll leave that there for a second. And then we'll quickly... Now, the first thing you'll notice about this is that it's probably going to start warping. Also, because it's not a watercolor paper, I don't know if I'll have a lot of play time to get that nice flat effect, because it might start drying on me in certain parts because it's really going to soak up into that paper. So, depending on what we can achieve, hopefully we can do it quick enough. And even though it'll...
quick enough so that it doesn't warp?
Because if it starts to dry and I go back over the top of it, I don't think in these types of papers that are super absorbent, it will reactivate whatever's underneath and blend really well. I think it sits on top and it looks streaky. So I'm going to try and work it as quickly as I can, pardon me, in that one area.
Does that happen? Why is watercolor paper watercolor paper? Like, what makes it great? Is
Oh,
it
I
the
couldn't
fact that-
tell you. But it's engineered for the watercolor. So I think it stays open a little longer. Like, you can work the paint around a little better. It's thicker, so it's not going to warp everywhere. Even warping, you'll notice, can be a big problem if you're trying to get a flat wash, because if you're doing a really watery wash, so there's a lot of water in it,
see, yeah.
as it warps, it'll puddle into those
Wherever the
areas.
area is,
Yeah,
right.
so I'm actually just going in a light layer.
I'm talking about this like I know, like puddle. and
Oh, I
stuff,
only know
puddle
from
and
play.
things.
I've never tried to study any of this. But see, even on the B paper, this is so absorbent. I actually find it bleeds. So that you can see there's like a darker ring. That's probably where I've stamped it. But it kind of feathers out and bleeds a little bit. Or perhaps that was my bad painting. Although I do remember the B paper was really hard to control the way I was used to controlling a lot of them. So let's kind of let that air dry. Since we've done the sketchbook paper, we can let that dry
Do you wanna
over
do it?
here. Oh, we can do the manila tag. This is a completely different color to start working with altogether. So something like this skin tone might not show up as well. But I have had such trouble with these manila tags. Even all manila tags aren't made equal, if you can believe that. See, when I'm painting, it gets all these dots.
Oh yeah.
It looks like the paper is wet and struggling. Yeah, that's how that feels to paint on.
Like rough.
No, you just don't know what your results are going to be. Often when it dries down, it's a lot lighter and it's a bit of a surprise. And it's a little more textured than I would like it. Sometimes those dots stick around even once it's dry.
What if you well, if you're just gonna do watercolor, might as well just stick to watercolor paper, or
True, but sometimes we don't have that luxury. Watercolor paper is very expensive. And so people are making do with whatever they've got. I used to try and make do with different cardstocks that I had lying around from my mum's old scrapbooking days.
got it.
And so I wanted to enjoy the process, and people would say, well, just get watercolor paper. And I'd think, well, I don't have all the money in the world to just be spending on Daniel Smith watercolors and watercolor journals and, notepads. It was great, and I do believe it's a great investment when you can, but sometimes you just can't. So there was nothing wrong with trying to make do in what you had. Here's the premium copy paper. We'll do the premium and the regular side by side.
Are you guys fascinated? Everybody's very quiet. I think everybody's just very watching and just interested.
Just very watching.
very watching. Ask questions. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, you can ask questions. I can't promise to know all the answers, but we can watch together as it unfolds. So with some
Did
of
you
these...
draw all of these?
What?
Did you draw all of this hair and all of these tails?
Oh, Steve. Art journals for one day, and then needs all the clout. Steve did draw in some of these tails and hairs, so congratulations, Steve.
Very good.
For some of these copy papers and the thinner papers, I try not to scrub too much, because I don't want to peel the paper. I notice that happens. Yeah, even I'm noticing as I'm painting on this slick surface is much easier to lay the watercolor on.
The premium copy paper?
The premium copy paper. If there's a bit of a coating, it's like the brush will glide over the page. If it's not, if there's a bit of a tooth to it with the copy papers, it's almost like the brush is like sucked into the paper, trying to absorb all that watercolor. I still don't think this is as easy as a watercolor paper,
I love it.
but something with this slick coating I do think works better.
This is fun to even write on, like, just to...
Well, but ironically, this doesn't work well with pencil. So today we're only showing you watercolor, which is water, and we're using the pigment's got its binder, and we're just kind of placing it on top. With every different art medium, there's a different binder with that pigment. So the way that interacts with your paper is going to be different too. So really, really slick surfaces with pencil tend to be a little annoying because you get used to using pencils with a bit of, what's it called? Drag?
I have no idea.
Tension? Friction.
Okay.
There's a bit of when you've got tooth on a paper, like a cold press watercolor paper or
It grabs it.
even a notebook paper, yeah, can you feel how this is kind of toothier than this is really slick and smooth?
Sure.
I would say can you not put that on the
sorry.
watercolor, please? Composition notebook, and we've got our last one here, Canson watercolor paper.
So we have people say in the chat, it's very relaxing. Oh, very cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Composition notebook is a little slick, but it's very thin, so it's probably going to warp a lot.
It's not like Bible paper thin though.
It is pretty thin. There's not onion skin.
Is that what
It's
Bible
pretty
paper is?
thin.
Onion skin?
I think so.
How are you guys today? Good. James took a 4-hour nap.
Thanks. I had terrible sleep last night.
And I painted.
I was very relaxed.
Karen
too.
says, I'm learning a lot. Awesome. Karen, we got Boona at 7:30. We'll be there.
Yeah, we're only planning to do this in one live stream today.
Karen says, I'm coming from the live Babyface concert. They were having technical difficulties, so I left and saw you live. Well, you know, we're so much more interesting than Babyface. Kay says, you can buy a medium called watercolor ground, and it helps any paper act like a watercolor paper.
Yeah, so that's it's like a kind of a clear paste-ish thing. And you would put it on, you can even put it on surfaces like your watercolor tin.
You just like...
Yeah, it's like, you know how we've got the gesso and the different mediums? It's a medium, so it'll help you transform anything.
Do you mix that with watercolor type thing? Or you put
You
it on...
actually put it on, let it dry, and then you do the
it.
watercolor on top.
Yes.
I personally like the, I like watercolor paper over anything with watercolor grounds, just because I don't feel like I'm painting on the same surface. And a lot of mixed media is also about the feeling. I've heard a lot of people talk about how they don't like certain mediums because like the feeling of the pastel makes them cringe, or you know, the way that something squeaks when they use it really irritates their ears. You know what I mean? Like it makes a terrible sound. So it's a full body experience creating with your arts and crafts supplies. And so I think even the feeling of the paper as you're using it does enhance or take away from that experience. Yeah. So let's go back to our cotton bee paper.
So we have, what's some art supply you can't journal without?
Oh, I do love my watercolors.
He loves his watercolors.
Now I'm going to use this Winsor & Newton. I'm going to try and only lay this down the sides, leave a bit of white space in the middle, but I'm going to activate a lot of it with water because this is a pretty granulating watercolor. And I want it to be vibrant. I'm going to drop some water in there as well to kind of separate that pigment. And I think you'll start to see the difference now that we've got a granulating watercolor. You'll start to see how not all papers are made equal with respect to how to get the most out of the effects of your watercolor. But remember, I'm trying to make them all work. I don't want them not to work. Like, I'm not trying to prove that any are bad. I just want to show you that some are limited.
And it says, it is really relaxing and very informative. Thank you for sharing such great information.
Thank you, Victory, for reminding me today. It was so interesting to see her side by side because I love that. It showed that, I mean, I assume she had a great time on each. I don't know. It might have been a bit of a great time on each. Did you have a good time, Victory?
Victory says, ooh, Steve, fishing for it. Haha, love you. Oh yeah, fishing for my compliment. Yeah.
Reel it in, Steve. There you go, nice and vibrant.
I'll have to show you what I worked on. Not today, though.
Let's go for...
What are you doing tonight? Testing paper?
Yes. Got it in one. But looking at the differences in all these papers, by using exactly the same watercolors on each, same style, same everything, same techniques. So I'm leaving this part open. See how this is already looking streaky? Because once it's soaked in, it won't start to blend out again. I'm going to try my best to put more pigment there until it evens out. But I'm not really getting a soft blend there.
Kind of frustrating. Good for you, Steve. Thank you. Bought some Palomino Black Wings and Stabilo All Black today.
Do like the Palomino Black Wings. There's a lot of graphite. They lay down a lot of graphite.
Shasta Green says, oh, I love a nap. Haha, Steve, have you gotten your own special journal yet? I think you've proven yourself and deserve it. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Actually, I have had.
He's had 2. He just hasn't used them.
Except I started using it.
Yeah, he started using it now.
I started using it yesterday.
It's almost full.
Hardly. I've done 4 pages. Karen says, I have an artist friend who paints watercolors on antique book pages.
Oh, see, there you go. And book pages are great too. You'll just find that all papers are not the same. That's all I'm trying to show here. But I'm going to try and make each one work. So I've put the water droplets in there to try and force the pigments to separate. I think, unfortunately, you see that's as good as we're going to get over here. And let's just leave these 2 to dry.
What else? I like painting over white... Sorry, guys, for that car. I like painting over white gesso with watercolor. Results in a cool texture effect.
The gesso I found has, the one that I was using anyway, it would give me a lot of like puddles and blooms and blossoms. Or another term that I heard was cauliflower, which I don't like. I don't mind to eat it, but I don't want to think of my watercolor doing that. And so Yeah, I found that on the gesso, it does a lot of those cool effects as well. It actually, it completely rehydrates. It doesn't sink into the paper, so I find that if you're using a lot of staining colors and you don't trust yourself, it's probably good to put a little layer of gesso down first.
Victory says, I watercolor on anything, everything, all of it. Just different expectations for different substrates.
Totally.
Come on, big word. Substrates.
And that's what I think is, it's a really healthy approach to have. Don't limit yourself. Don't say, oh, this is copy paper, it's not going to work. Just say, well, I don't know what this result's going to be, but we'll give it a go.
Danielle says, Daniel Smith has a gold watercolor ground, but I agree, I prefer watercolor paper to 100% cotton.
Yes.
And people loving this color. What was the name of the red blue pencil that you draw with again?
Mitsubishi, Vermilion, and Prussian Blue. They're linked in my Amazon storefront. If you have any questions about things, I think a lot of them are linked in that Amazon storefront. You don't have to buy it from there, but if you're curious about other things that I've recommended before, mostly everything is on there.
Have you tried Holbein watercolors yet? Holbein?
No, I don't think I've tried Holbein.
Victor says, I did have a great time. I painted them both at the same time, but there were only 2, so it wasn't so intense. I know, James out here doing the most on
I just kept finding
on
paper.
like 40 different papers.
I kept finding that's why they're quite simple. Sorry, they're simple aerials today, but I'm trying to give you a look at different things. Like this, I want to give you the look at the texture of the watercolor. This was a flat lay, this is the texture, and we're going to do a bit of a blend. So we're trying to attack a few different techniques.
Gigi's Colorful World says, hi guys, I'm loving seeing what you're doing with your
Gigi.
watercolor explorations.
Thank you.
Thanks, I
owe a lot of my watercolor love to Gigi, because Gigi gifted me so many Daniel Smiths when I was starting out. So thank you again, Gigi. I will never be too thankful.
Thank you, because I've started using them too.
Yeah, now Steve's using. My mum's very upset that I never give her the good ones. She's still requesting a set of designs by Rachel Beth. See, look, this is actually starting to bloom and blossom. This is the composition notebook paper, and that's quite a flat effect. So we're still getting the things that I love about watercolor. We're just having to deal with buckling as we go. This is why I wouldn't discount anything just because you think it might be too cheap. This is a 50-cent notebook.
I have a bad habit of buying more watercolor palettes than I'll ever need.
I see them as a bit of a collectible thing, but Tangi is right. We got on there the other day. This is regular copy paper. We got on the watercolor live stream the other day, and she was saying that the best feeling is to use it all up. Go and get your most expensive ones. There's not a better feeling than knowing that you loved it so much that you have an empty pan of it just sitting in front of you, and it can be quite upsetting, but typically we can go and buy another one, and if it's all sold out, then you had a great time with it. You can just find something new to love.
Can you tell who did what tail and what hair?
Oh, actually, I haven't come across any yet. Your tails must be very good, Steve.
Yeah, today they are.
That's assuming mine were very good. They were simple. But you did a good job.
Thank you.
So this regular copy paper is having the same problem the tag had, in that it's drying too quickly, or it's sucking up the water too quickly, and it's not going to let me reactivate a lot of that underneath. So I'm getting a lot of streaking. Can you see how I can't rub that together and make that blend away? So that's why I don't want to try and overwork it. I know for a fact that putting the water in there won't really help at this point, but we'll put a bit of water in there. Hopefully some of the more saturated areas figure out something. Maybe it will help, I don't know. Don't expect it to. Sketchbook paper.
We have... Okay. This music, interesting, huh? We're recording for the blog, so we
Sounds
have
like
to
an Irish
use...
G.
We have to use, like...
royalty-free.
Royalty-free.
Otherwise it would just be silent, which I'm
So it's a
pretty
lot...
sure
So better than just the random royalty-free.
no one wants
We're trying to use...
something soothing.
We're trying to use classical music. Because that's...
You know, Beethoven,
Mozart.
Bach.
I love Bach.
Oh look, see I've managed to get that really watery and that looks like it's got a good effect. While this is wet, let's put our dots of clean water in
Gigi
there.
says, you are so welcome. Glad to have fellow explorers down the watercolor rabbit hole.
You threw me down there, Gigi.
Literally tossed.
Oh look, that watercolor, the sketch paper is totally doing it. I know it's wet, you can't see it. You'll see it in a minute. I'm very impressed with that. I didn't expect that to work.
Hello, Ali.
Hello, Ali Brown.
No, Ali
Oh,
Arnold
no,
art.
different one. Hello,
Yeah.
Ali Arnold. Hey, girl. Oh, look, premium copy paper. This one should... I'm expecting good things from this one. Because it's got that slick surface. So I'm putting on that layer of colour kind of heavy on the outside, and then I'm using water to blend it, but actually this is not doing very well. Ugh. See, my expectations are not met. What's that? Hopefully while it's wet we can just put another layer of colour on there, force it to blend. I'm going to try and put my texture in just now. This watercolor actually kind of texturizes itself pretty well because it's granulating, but I still like to force it with those little droplets of water because that's just a technique that I really love. Just to help it spread.
Victory says Gigi is the most generous soul. That's so sweet.
But don't you guys live close to each other? I don't know. In my head you do.
Have you played with Yuppo?
Oh, Yupo. No, I haven't actually.
Sprock.
Yuppo. HB Sprock. Wow, we've got some really different results going on with these tails. Like, very different. Even the colour. The colour looks completely different. Levels of saturation in each of these.
What if you're kind of colorblind and you can't really see the difference?
Look at that. Look at that B paper result. See all of that? Compared to the copy paper. Can you see how different these are? This is not dry yet.
7 p.m. horns and whistles for the frontliners. Oh, that's
Oh,
in
yeah.
are you the East Coast in New York? Hi Victory. No, we met up in Portland.
Oh, you met up in Portland. Okay.
Lana says, do you like to use alcohol-based markers?
I do. I love to. I don't use them enough though.
Those are the Copic?
Copic markers, yeah. So now we're going to grab this orangey red, and I'm going to start at the bottom of the hair. I'm going to add the most amount of pigment at the bottom, in this little nook here too. And then I'm going to spread it up.
Canada says for the horns and whistles. For
Oh, no
frontliners.
way. We don't do that here.
We don't. We don't do that in Anaheim.
So there's a lot of red pigment at the bottom here. I'm going to wipe my brush off.
Horns all around the world.
And I'm going to start spreading it up to the top of the crown of the head. So I'm trying to get a bit of a smooth gradient going on, a bit of a nice blend. I'm not doing it the best way ever, but...
So we're saying horns all around the world for 7 p.m. Here we'll give a...
There you go.
Thank you to all our essential workers and all of our doctors and nurses who are on the front line.
I'm going to push some more of that pigment up. So this is one of the benefits of watercolor paper. I didn't really love how much the pigment was moving around, so now I can start to force it. Because it's not fully dry yet, that paper is still saturated. It sucked up that pigment, but I can still move it all around. And so I can start spreading it into the top of the hair and get a nice soft blend. I've got a bit of a moment to do that.
With that paper, because it
With this, yeah, this is the cold press watercolor paper. This is B paper. It's very, very textured. This one from Mixed Media is hard if you want to do fine details. There was a period where I loved it, but I think I was loving it because I was also loving mechanical pencils at the time. And it was, I think any like regular pencil just was too thick for me to get good details.
Anya Toledo says, my son is a nurse, so he's a hero for sure. Definitely.
Thank you to your son, Anya.
Thank you to your son.
Thanks to everybody.
Thanks to all the parents and all the
All
children.
the children of the world. That's everyone.
What is the blue-green you've used?
Oh, I knew someone would ask, and I don't know.
Gigi.
I think it's Winsor and Newton. I don't know the exact name of it though. Steve, do you want to try and pull it out of that tin?
Get my fingers all painty. Yes, Anya.
You're at
Love
Steve's.
Mermaids.
It's at Steve's
I was
discretion
just going
now.
to ask you about bee paper.
Yeah, super great paper. Hopefully we're kind of exploring its properties today a little bit.
That thing is
just very,
so
very
wet.
textured.
How does this come out?
I know I've written it down in a file somewhere what that paint was, but I just don't know by name. Here, I'll grab it. gonna try and get this little. Oh no,
See? That's what I didn't want to do.
they're so packed in there, and they're all
And
wet.
they're wet.
Here. Oh, maybe I can read it from here.
Oh, sorry, I just kicked the camera.
Oh no. Oh great. It doesn't say.
And you have paint all over it.
And I've got it all over my hands. Oh no, it's Schminke. It's Schminke. Says 4335 something 0 510 433510. What's that? I hope that helps.
433510.
My goodness, it's all over my hands. I think I'm gonna have to excuse myself for a second to wash that off my hands. Oh look, I have a wipe here.
So silly.
Wow,
That's like
it's
intense.
really strong. I think Idiot gave me that.
It's pretty.
I'm pretty sure I know exactly that Idiot gave me that.
What was it?
And
5?
this dark purple as well, but I don't know what that one's called.
Gigi says Schminke 5. I don't remember the number.
Oh, I've forgotten it.
And that thing's away.
Sorry, you might have to catch the live replay. If I can find it online, I'll link it on the blog post.
Any thoughts or advice to someone who is afraid to use more expensive supplies or paper?
Yeah, we were saying earlier when I was on the Instagram live with Tangi, it's a great feeling to have used up something that you loved, because you know you really loved it. Although I can't say that there's any like surefire way to do it. You really just have to bite the bullet at some point and just use it. If you can try and make all the supplies less precious, I think you'll have a better time.
This is a really good idea. I have a supplies journal where I get to know my supplies. I'm going to try this with the same paint in a variety of papers.
Yeah, so a lot of people have done this. This is not new. I think a lot of people do this all the time, actually, when they're trying to get familiar with something. But as with swatching colors, I've never loved to just do it with the paint by itself, because I would never just paint little squares and then call it a day. So I like to just create something and start using it the way I want to use it. And that's why I think, even though I recommend something to you, it might be worthless to you unless you like to paint the way that I like to paint, or unless you like the effects that I like. Like if you hate the granulation and all the blooming and the watercolor texture, then you would hate a lot of the things that I recommend. So it is a good idea to always play, but I think find the play that is enjoyable for you. Like if swatching everything out is not enjoyable, then don't do it that way. Or if you're finding that swatching it out is not really giving you an idea of how they're going to work when you're doing mixed media, because one paint by itself can look fantastic until you mix it with other paints and then you realize, oh, it just doesn't go with anything I've got. So I say get it into a piece, and I think you'll have a lot more of an understanding. This is the premium copy paper.
We have Love Rachel Beth Watercolors and Daniel Smith together make a beautiful palette for me, but I need a vibrant red. Can you suggest one?
Daniel Smith, the regular primaries is pretty good.
Question. Do you have suggestions for supplies, etc. for watercolor beginners?
Yes, Canson cold press watercolor paper. They're selling them on Etsy right now. On Etsy, on Amazon, there's a 9x12 pad. They're selling for $5, which is incredible. If you can grab that, that's great. People can be snobs about paper. I think that's exactly why we're doing this today, just to show that not all paper is made equal, and you can work with a lot of things. You'll just get different results. But if you're looking for paints, I mean, Prima do a pretty good set. The Prima, the Jane Davenport, all of those private labeled paint sets are pretty good to start with. I like the color selection of Prima. I think they put together nice little palettes. And they've got a regular, I think it's their standard palette. It's like a rainbow.
Gigi says, thank you didn't need to do that. You're welcome. About getting the paint out.
Oh, okay. Sorry I didn't have the name. I know that I've got a name written down somewhere, but I think I had to search with that code to find it as well anyway.
But she wrote 433510, so it's in the chat.
Okay. I shouldn't have thrown away the packaging.
Victory says, it gets more expensive the longer it sits around doing nothing. The watercolor, if you don't use it.
True.
Tag Tuesday. So, Victor says the worst thing that can happen is that you use up the good stuff and then you have to use the cheap stuff that you're already using. So you're living the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Such a good way to look at it. So this is, I think we're really starting to see here the struggle with getting a nice blend. Can you see the difference?
I like this paper so far.
Yeah, it's nice. I like how vibrant things look on it. I'm going to try it on the Canson because I find that this is always dulls it down a little bit. There's something about the sizing in a cheaper paper that's not 100% cotton that some of the chemicals seem to like dull the colors. But also, I think from my own experience, like that's been a lot of my fault because I'll use the heat tool, which will also change it.
Is this relaxing for you?
Yeah, it's like coloring. It's really quick though. I think that's why my mum likes watercolors, because she would watch my gran and I color all the time, and she could just never sit down for that long. You know what she's like.
Yeah, I do.
And so when I gave her the watercolors to play with, when we first did those mermaid coloring books,
Right.
she did not stop. She was like, "Look how quick I did that!" Like the point was to be quick, and she loved it.
I get that today though. When I was doing my thing, I was like, "Ugh, this is so tedious."
Yeah, but I think I'm a bit like that too. Because how much in real life do I always just like?
Yeah, it was a little de-energizing for me. I think but what was de-energizing for me wasn't the art of doing it, but rather the my own sense of like trying to be super accurate and overly perfectionist.
Well, that's your style.
Yeah, how irritating. Like I was incredibly like de-energized by my own sense of whatever. I was like, ugh. I was like, this would be much more interesting if you just did quick like James, but then it would just look like chicken scratch.
I think it's so funny that even a few days in, you're already asking those questions to yourself, and I think that's a lot of people go through that. I think you could explain more about how you're feeling about that process, because you've lurked for a long time. What are you relating to with all the posts you've ever seen in the past about people who are just getting into it, or even when I first got into it and I was telling you about my struggles and I won't put you on the spot like that. What if you forget? But how do you relate to a lot of the posting that you see about beginners and the struggles?
I feel like it's just not good enough.
Really?
Yeah. I find that that I am proud of myself, but I start to play the comparison game too much, and instead of just being happy with my own perspective of what I bring to the table, because then I go immediately into like,
who are you comparing to?
Catherine Martin.
Of course. Of course, a professional in the field of fashion. You know, that's really funny because it's natural, right? It's natural to compare and contrast. And I think for someone like you that is very focused on details and you want everything to be... I think you want it, in an ideal world, to be referential, but you are very literal.
Right.
And so your comparison, I feel like would be much stronger because you're doing a direct comparison.
Yeah, and I need to not do that.
And you're comparing results rather than ideas.
Yes.
Which is terrible because you've done an amazing job. So I would hate to think that you even compared it at all. I would compare it to your results last week, which was 0. Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you did some Instagram lives. Compare yourself now to this time last year. You'd never even done it.
No, and
so you're in a better place.
I guess. I mean, I always feel like this is just going to eventually... I don't know what it's going to be. I bought 2 of your mermaid coloring books and loved using the first, but can't bring myself to use the second. Want to buy a couple more. Those are vintage now.
Yeah, those are vintage. Those are out of publication.
Yeah, scan them in.
Yeah, take a photocopy. I had a great time with those.
I gotta go. Thank you, Stephen James. Very information and inspirational.
Thank you.
Informative and inspirational. Have a great rest of the weekend.
You too.
You're welcome. Thank you. Enjoy. What was it, Babyface? Enjoy the concert.
Work concert. We'll have this on the blog later as a live replay. Because last night's lives I couldn't save because my Instagram was glitching. Maybe that's what was happening again today.
Maybe it needs to be updated.
This is the regular copy paper. Why do I feel like the regular copy paper is working better than the premium for this? Maybe I've been bamboozled.
Whoa, whoa.
Maybe, wow. Maybe they've sold me.
Bamboozled. Oh, wow, wow.
They've sold me the regular as premium.
Wow, wow. See here, I've been bamboozled, huh? What a word.
I like it.
They bamboozled me, see?
Tangi always says the word cattywampus, and I really like that word too.
Oh, cattywampus in the cat pajamas. Oh, yeah.
What's that accent called? Transatlantic?
Yeah, so it's like it's a Catherine Hepburn.
Oh, you see.
Yeah, they talk like this, and it was like the transatlantic is how they used to talk in the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s.
Look at this sketch paper. Did really well. Look at that. Look at that.
Anya Toledo, Steve, you crack me up.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Yeah, he's a regular comedian.
Yeah,
Ladies, am I right?
I'm actually so quiet, typically at home. Wouldn't you agree?
Silent. And ever since he's been putting on these noise cancellation headphones that I got last year for myself on a flight back from Australia, which ironically then I sat next to a woman who wanted to talk to me for 8 hours. Which was fine. She was going through a lot, so I was fine. It was just like, wow, this was not the trip to have purchased these and want to use them. Steve's been putting those on and having concerts in his head for the past couple of days, so he's been extra quiet in his own world, but
It's loud.
not in my world.
My world is loud.
He's been listening to full diva performances in those
Oh
headphones.
yeah, I feel like I'm in a concert.
And today we tried singing with them on just to see how bad. Steve was terrible. Like, terrible. He started off key.
Because they're noise canceling and you can't even hear yourself because I put it at full volume, so you can't hear yourself at all.
So funny. I thought you'd have been at least a little better than that.
Hey, it's all right.
It's fine. I know that you can do it for real. Unlike myself. What does that say about me that I put them on and I sounded better?
Yeah. Maybe you're too focused on listening to yourself.
See if you crack me up. Gigi's laughing. Bamboozle is such a funny word. Definitely. Kay said, ordered us a red blue pencil each.
Yay.
Ordered us a red blue pencil each. Kale. Thank you, James and Steve.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you, LOL. Laughing. Lots of laughing faces.
Yeah, it was very good. In my head, I sounded great. Anyway, I actually have to listen to the soundtrack if I'm doing something that is inspired by. I have to listen to the soundtrack, which helps get me in the mood.
In the mood. Well, we've only got bras to go after this, and then we're done. But can I say I am very shocked by some of the results. That notebook sketch paper has really blown me away.
This one?
Yeah, and it was a notebook I threw in the cupboard the other day because I was like, oh, I won't use that.
You like this?
No, this one, the one that I just did, the kind of cream tone notebook sketch paper, it's actually picking up the textures of the watercolor.
It all looks the same to me.
Does it really?
Yeah.
There you go. Isn't that funny? Because I tell you that those shirts you keep telling me to choose between look all the same to me. And you're like, this is a grey marl, and this is a black with a fine tooth, blah, blah, blah.
Who says that?
You.
When do I say that?
When you asked me to choose between two of the same exact grey t-shirts. You're like, this one or this one?
Oh, well, that's
It looks
different
exactly
because
the
one is a
same.
different cotton.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not the color. It's
You're
the
saying
texture.
you're seeing all the same things here. That's exactly what I saw.
Color and texture are two different things.
Well, that's what we're looking at today.
No, I see red and green. Christmas.
I love Christmas. I'm gonna go watch The Family Stone after this.
Which noise canceling headphones do you have? I've been thinking about getting some. They're Sony's.
Sony. I can't tell you if I got swindled at the airport because I think she knew I was desperate, and
then
and I knew nothing about technology, and that really came across. But I just bought them, and I was like, these are fantastic. They actually are fantastic.
so you guys are cracking me up. Hi, Kathy. Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
Hello. K Pixie creates. I finally watched Coco because of you two. Thanks. I need a good cry. Oh,
Oh, isn't it good?
don't get me started. Today's a friend of mine. His son had a birthday. Is having a birthday today. He's 5 years old and he loves Coco. And so I sent him an emoji on the iPhone of the skeleton singing Poco Loco, but it was actually me singing Poco Loco. It was fun. And he loved it. That's his response.
Lucky I was asleep for that.
Wickedly Creative says, LOL, you boys are so funny. Thanks. We don't try to be.
literally no effort to be creative.
Creative. To be creative or funny?
Oh, is it funny?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I try very hard, actually.
Marie also says, Steve, have you busted out your journal yet? I have.
He has.
I'm going to show
Totally
you guys
has.
when this is done.
So now I'm just going to go in with this little bit of purple. We're just going to draw some lines over the bust, and then as it's wet, let another darker purple sink into the sides of that, and we'll see if these two colors can't just blend together on their own nicely, do what they do. So in the middle and on the sides. There we go. The results have been kind of crazy.
Marie Austin, yay. Linda, I can't wait to see your journal. I've only drawn 2 things.
It's pretty good. I showed people last night.
But it did something new today. It's not very interesting.
Are you kidding?
I told you, comparison is the thief of joy.
Well, I don't even know what you're comparing it to, because I didn't even see Catherine Martin's designs for that.
I showed you on this color of paper.
Yeah, no, but that was digital.
Well, I don't know.
And also, it wasn't the same dress. It was a different dress.
It's just the idea that her stuff is just beautiful.
Steve's made up a comparison image in his head that's better than his own.
That was great. I missed last night, and that's great. I missed last night, and there was no replay. Sorry, Linda. I know
sorry.
we had technical difficulties.
I tried to press share to story, and it just turned off. Like, it just turned me out of Instagram, glitched me out.
I feel like maybe Instagram. Oh, look at the sun. Look at the sky.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Ooh, that's my favorite. I think Instagram is like, maybe a little angry these days. Getting a little overworked.
It's owned by Facebook, no?
Huh?
It's owned by Facebook, no?
I have no idea. I think there's something. Me too, Linda. You guys missed Victory. You weren't here last night, or maybe all the days are starting to run into each other.
We were doing strawberry shortcake.
Oh yeah. Should we show them? This is what we did.
Get your journal out too, because I want to see.
This is what we did last night. Is it in the frame, Casey?
Mm-hmm.
So this is strawberry shortcake, inspired with different eras of fashion.
I've got to get a wriggle on.
So what is it, like strawberry shortcake, plum pudding, and orange blossom?
Orange blossom, yeah. Can you move that for a second?
Sorry, that's it.
I need to get a wriggle on because we cannot go overtime tonight because we've got our
Yeah, we have to hurry up.
our book date with Boona.
Steve, work is correct. Everyone else is just wrong. What did I say? What did I say? I don't remember it. Sorry. Facebook owns it. Yes, it's owned by Instagram. Wow, thank you. Love those. And it says, it was late and I had gotten up at 6. Oh, I feel you. Beautiful. Thank you. Nice. Oh my, that's so gorgeous. I know James did all of it, but I take the credit. Oh my God, that's amazing. Maybe we'll come back later on. No promises though, but we have
Wow.
because I say it, but you never know.
Who have you turned into?
You.
Now he's just saying it on my behalf now. Where was all this training 4 weeks ago?
What do you mean?
When you were first employed into JLB Creative.
I love this. So cute. I love those threesomes. Do they smell like strawberry shortcake? I know. Can we
Could you
add
imagine?
scents to them? Okay. Steve, have you done any pages in your Little Mermaid journal I gave you? I have not.
He has not. He put that away.
I put it away because it was too cute.
He's
you,
a
though.
hoarder.
I am. It's not hoarding if it ends up in a journal, but how does that work?
Shut up, Steve.
I mean, okay, so while this is happening...
Okay. Well, we just finished. We're going to kind of let them dry off a little bit, and then we'll talk about some of the differences. So I'll just move this out of the way so we can see all of them side by side.
Please, Linda says, please, you have to, but I would love to see paint. I'll be sad after Charlotte's end. I know Charlotte's Web ends tonight.
Oh,
Please, you have to.
it's been good.
Because, we have to do a live tonight.
We'll, like
Scott
Steve
Steve
said,
says
we
you
won't
have
make
to
any
use
promises,
it.
but I'll try. I'll try my
Victor
best.
says, so are you going to try colored pencil on these in another live session?
No. I think we'll just leave it at the watercolor for now. Only because I know the colored pencils I have are oil-based, polychromos, and the Holbein, the oil and wax-based. They'll work on pretty much anything. It's just the experience of putting them on different papers is different. So toothier papers, you'll get more of a texture. Smoother papers, it'll be harder to layer them on top. So I don't think there's a point to showing that too much because I don't think those results would show up on camera. For this anyway. Maybe in a different test it would show up better for you. But I just wanted to show you the difference in the actual watercolor because there's a whole bunch of different things going on here. So let's just take two of these. Let's take the watercolor paper samples first because these should be technically our best. And by theory, if we're using watercolor paper, they should all be the same, right? So here is a hot press on the side. See how much more cool tone and dull those colors are? And these are a lot warmer and a lot richer on the cold press paper.
I like this texture. I like but I can understand what the
Can you
bleed.
see how bleeding it is?
Yeah, the bleed would
see how much you
annoy me. I
bleed
would get
on that
so
texture?
mad.
And see how crisp some of these edges can be?
This is nice.
But then you've got things here like this. I feel like this is a smoother blend on this one than I managed to achieve down here. But that could have been user error. But even the texture is different. This actually has a really deep, rich texture along the side. But a lot of those blooming and blossoms that I really, really love, it was kind of harder to get that on the B paper because it does a really good job of spreading the water out evenly and it soaks all the... Like, I'd have to do really tiny droplets of water to force it, I think. But it's much easier on the Canson. And even on the hot press, you can actually see a lot more of the granulation of that watercolor on the hot press paper. But again, you're going to dull down your colors a bit for some reason. I just don't know how that happens.
It's interesting. This is nice, though. I like this.
So those are the watercolors. I'll show the video up there.
We have, I use a scrap paper to leave the journals perfect.
Here is the premium copy paper versus the regular. So the regular's on the left, the premium's on the right. I think they're both pretty similar. I would say the premium held up a bit more color.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, now that I look at it, I said the regular copy paper was doing well. It wasn't doing as well as I thought. Yeah, it's a bit streaky. Still, we got a similar result. And I think if you compare that to something like, I would say this is probably the nicest one that we got with the Canson watercolor paper. If we compare that, it's not the end of the world. You're still getting the same effect. Just the results aren't as, like, can you see in the bra? See how those watercolors move together? I know it's still a little wet. See how they're all blended beautifully? Here it's like, it's just kind of stuck. Those shadow areas of the purple are kind of stuck. So let's move on to the composition notebook and the regular sketchbook. This regular sketchbook paper was a complete surprise. Now, like I said, they're not all made equal. So this was actually from Miniso. I had this from that haul that I did years ago. So really, really great. Look at all that texture that we managed to get in there. Even the blend was soft. And for warping, it's actually a really tight kind of warp. It's not buckled the entire paper. It's just buckled where we've painted. Whereas something like this has ended up buckling the entire paper because it's really, really thin. But at the same time, the composition notebook, you still got a lot of that granulation.
So my question is,
The color is even pretty vivid on this too. Like, this is not that bad, and this was super cheap. I'm impressed.
When people use, like, people do watercolor art journal in their Bibles, like, then doesn't those pages, like, get all,
they'll crinkle.
like, warpy?
But you can flatten them out again. And this is the Manila Tag versus the Canson watercolor paper. The Manila Tag, I think, did the worst. Ironically, I used to have tags where they did the best. So it's just this you're gonna feel differently about. There's not a coating on this one that I used to remember from the old ones, and they're a lot more flimsy. But can you see the streaking in the hair? We weren't able to get a smooth blend. We did this wet enough for it to be able to blend, but we couldn't get any texture in the tail. And the colors overall are a lot more muted than anything else we managed to achieve. That's exactly the same red. And I know this is on a Manila Tag, but you can just see how dull those are.
It's interesting.
So there you go. I think
This is my vote.
standout for today, I think we're going with Canson watercolor paper. It is actually on sale for about $5 for a 9x12 pad. That was the last time I checked a couple of days ago. Link in bio if you want to visit the Amazon storefront. The notebook sketch paper I think was a bit of a surprise for me, as well as the composition notebook. I could see both of these being an incredibly useful, cheap alternative. Something that bugs me a little bit is that the premium and the regular aren't different enough for me to be happy about that result. But I think I still love this premium paper for printing. The printing results for my printer are a lot better on the premium copy paper. So those dye-based inks do really well on it. The cotton paper, the B cotton paper, again, I have to use this for something that I want a lot of texture with because there's just so much bleeding in there. I don't know what to do. And yeah, the hot press I really enjoy working on, but it kind of dulls everything down.
But it looks pretty with that one.
Yeah, when you add a lot of pigment, you'll get a nice result. And this was actually
That was from
Tombow
last time.
marker, so it's ink.
But the shimmer on it is really pretty.
Shimmer is really pretty. So yeah, those are our different types of paper. Hopefully you've learned that it's not really about how expensive something is. It's about what you can manage to do with it. We looked at kind of a blend, we've looked at a flat lay of a wash, and we've looked at creating texture with the watercolor. So 3 different techniques I would typically use. And yeah, I just don't snooze at any of your papers. Just give it a go. And I would say give it a go in a way that you're actually trying to make something that you want to make look nice. Don't assume that your paper is going to work badly, so then treat it like, don't do the technique properly.
I mean, if you're meant to draw or if you're meant to do art, like, are you not going to do it if you don't have the right paper? No, you just do it, right?
Oh, well, sometimes I think, oh, this is just a cheap piece of paper. I'm not going to bother. Like, I'm not going to get the results, so whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then you realize, well, if I just give it a bit of attention, you can. Now here I got a bit of water, so it's separated all that pigment. But since I love that, I know that it's going to work down here.
That's cool.
And I could have just tried to get that a nicer blend. In fact, I could just go back over it. That's something we didn't really look at is glazing. But because there's a bit of a slick coating on this, I can go over it and scrub that in and rework that result to get it to what I want to be.
Interesting. We have Anya says, I get stopped all the time when I have your cotton bag that says it's not hoarding it, but it ends up in a journal. Everyone loves it, for sure. We have so many
funny.
still.
We have a lot.
Linda says, so cool to see the difference. It's hard to find bee paper. Bee paper is on Amazon. Very cool. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm actually going to take a bunch of photos of each of these so that they'll end up on the blog and you can get a better look at how each one is different.
Beth says, I'm late. Sorry, Beth. It's going to go up on the
All right,
blog.
we'll put it up on the blog.
Shasgreen, thank you so much. Very informative to see. Always thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.
Love this idea of trying so many papers. Watching Phantom on YouTube. Yes, the Royal Albert Hall version is so good. Thank you. It was great ideas.
Now what am I going to do with these?
I don't know.
I wish you could all just come and steal them from my desk.
We'll have to come back and we'll show you guys.
Oh, did you show everyone this?
No.
I need to show you this. Guys, this is what he was saying he was bad at today.
This was yesterday.
This was yesterday. This was his first work in his new journal. This is Romeo and Juliet. Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. This is Juliet. It's her costume with the wings. And this is inspired by Leo DiCaprio's shirt that he wears in the movie.
Designed by Catherine Martin.
That Steve also has a version of. He loves. And today he did The Great Gatsby. Isn't that stun Wario? He was very hard on himself for
This
this.
is just a little overworked.
Look at how perfectly he placed everything. These are little jewels. He even put little iridescent watercolor over all the little jewels. It's a Prada outfit. See? Look, I know. Thank you, everyone. I'm reading your comments. Steve's not going to read them out loud. Thank you. He did do an amazing job. This was also based off of Leo DiCaprio's tie that he wear. Wow, you've got a lot of Leonardo DiCaprio in here. Should I be worried? He was. This is the tie that he was wearing with his pink pinstripe suit in the movie. This is Daisy's dress.
Yeah, actually, I love this look. This is the one where she wears the headband with that's that.
You're not starting a thing, are you? You're not doing Romeo and Juliet, and then this is this, and then you're going to do Moulin Rouge, and you're going to do Dirty Strictly Ballroom,
and then maybe Estrella.
and Estrella.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love it.
I think that's the collection.
How pretty. I'm very impressed. I think he did a really great job.
Thanks, guys.
And this is his Muggle Art Studies journal.
Because I'm a wizard studying Muggle arts.
Yeah.
No, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I learned from you guys.
He is very proud. I know he compares himself, but he is still very proud. Anyway, so I'll leave that with you. Thank you for joining us. We'll probably get on later tonight after dinner or something and spend the rest of the night with you then. And yeah, I'll put this up on the blog later and take some photos. Thank you again for joining us all. Have fun with any paper you can put your watercolors on. You'll have a great time.
Thank
hopefully.
you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.